So we're talking about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict after October 7th. Not a huge topic at all. We'll solve everything in like 30 minutes or so. With me is Dr. Rula Hardal, who is the co-director of A Land for All and a research fellow at the Kogod Center for the Study of Jewish and Contemporary Thought at the Shalom Hartman Institute in Jerusalem. She received her PhD in political science from University of Hanover in Germany, where she worked as a lecturer of political science and international relations for several years. In 2015, she returned to Israel and joined Al-Quds University in East Jerusalem as an associate professor of political science until the summer of 2021. Meron is a co-founder of A Land for All and the content director for the Israeli branch. He was born in Tel Aviv and was a journalist in the last 20 years in various newspapers in Israel, including Haaretz. He is 30 years. That was in the biography you sent me. You wanted me to present you as a younger, probably. Okay, 30 years. And the winner of the Napoli International Prize for Journalism for an inquiry about the stealing of olive trees from Palestinian owners. Since 2018, he is an editor and writer for Local Call 972 magazine, an Israeli-Palestinian independent news outlet. And was the founder of Two States, One Homeland movement in July 2012, and since then one of its leaders. How many of you know Land for All? Just so we know the... Okay. And how many of you read 972? That's pretty good. And Haaretz? Thank you. Okay. I'm a huge supporter of 972. I also... I'm one of the funders. So Dr. Shai Agamon is a junior research fellow at the University of Oxford and academic director of Molad, which is an independent Israeli think tank for the renewal of Israel's democracy. It's an interesting choice of words, the renewal. Maybe you'll say something about it. He has a PhD in political theory from the University of Oxford and a master's in philosophy and public policy from LSE. Outside academia, Shai is heavily invested in public writing and political work within Israel's opposition. So my first question is semi-personal also. I mean, it has public implications, but also personal, which is how October 7th affected Jews and Palestinians within Israel regarding their previous political agenda. We know that some people on the center left say that, you know, the events kind of opened their eyes, in Hebrew, hitpakhu, which means they changed their opinions because of the events. Other people, you know, say that the opposite. It strengthened their ideas that they had before. So I would like to know, you know, what happened to you personally, and what do you think happened to the Israeli society at large? So we'll hear the three of you. We'll start with you, Rula.
Did they work? Yeah. Thank you, Noah. Well, to start from the personal point, October 7th actually brought me to do this work, to do this political work, and to advocate for something different that we know, instead of continuing my my academic career. I do still have some, you know, academic career, but what I'm doing is actually all the day is to advocate for our political vision, for a solution, and not because I love you, the Jews and the Israelis. Really, I do.
Me personally, you love me though.
Yeah, I do. I do love Meron. I do love you. I do love a lot of you. I do have a lot of friends and colleagues, but really, and seriously, I do it from my position as a Palestinian, for my people, and from my position claiming to be the indigenous in this place. And I do think that being the indigenous Palestinian who claim that that live under the Israeli occupation and that this land belongs to us, we can, discuss about our narratives if it belongs to you, to all of you as Jews or to us as the Palestinians. And we don't need to agree. We need to agree that we had two national narratives and that we can live with these two narratives without to continue struggling over the land. So I do it from this position that I think it's a very powerful position. And in all of my discussions with Palestinians, I encourage them to take seriously and to take agency over their indigeneity in the place and to be able to reconcile with the colonizer, with the occupier. And this is actually what I do. To refer to the second part of your question, I have a problem with the whole concept of hitpakhut because awakening, that describes actually a lot of the Israelis. I don't see any hitpakhut or awakening. I do see a continuous collective blindness and ignorance and self-centered, self-indulgent people that are not willing to see what's going on the other side. And their responsibility, actually, to the miserable life and to the continuous denial of the right of the Palestinian people for self-determination and even before self-determination, the most basic rights. So I can spend now another 1 hour analyzing and describing this collective blindness.
What about Palestinians?
So
was there
the Palestinian side? Yeah, at the beginning, the Palestinian people were, the majority of them, kind of proud of what happened October 7th. Not because they like Hamas and support Hamas, and not because they are violent and not human, but because this was the first act where they started to see since 20, 25 decades that there is still a will among the Palestinians to resist and to fight against the unbelievable situation of the continuous military occupation.
And after they heard and saw the testimonies of what happened?
I can tell you what I heard from them, from my previous colleagues, scholars in Palestinian universities, from my previous students. A lot of them called me and asked, you know Hebrew, you follow the Israeli media. Did Hamas really, or the people of Gaza, raped women? Did these videos that we see are real? Because they felt, and I discussed with them, why do you ask these questions? Two reasons. The religious background, okay? They couldn't believe that any Muslim can do something like that. And especially Hamas, claiming that they are, Muslims, religious Muslims. And the second point is that in the history of the Palestinian national struggle, we didn't ever had something like that. We had violent phases of the Palestinian struggle, but not in this sense, not in this shape of attack. But still, although the very immediate support and being proud of what Hamas did, they started to realize that, okay, we are now in a very different phase. It's not another escalation and not another war against Gaza or against the Palestinian people. And you know, all the Palestinian people feel that it's a war against the Palestinian people and not only war against Hamas or the Gazans. They started to feel a couple of weeks later on that it's a turning historic point, that their existence is in danger. And now, after what we are seeing, after more than 1 year of this genocidal war, elimination war, especially in Gaza, but not only in Gaza, against all Palestinians, I do believe that the collective national existence of the Palestinian people are now in danger. And I do believe that this is actually the main goal of the Israeli government. And it's not to, you know, fight against Hamas or... The last point, very briefly, when you speak to Palestinians, the majority of them, and I'm speaking about the Palestinians in the homeland, okay, between the Jordan and the sea. I'm not speaking about the Palestinians in the diaspora, and this is another discussion because there is a gap also about the narratives of these two groups of Palestinians. The majority of them want just normal life and want to have their own state and to be free, to move from one place to the other in the West Bank and to be connected with Gaza and to stop all of these atrocities.
Meron, did anything change in your political thought since October 7th?
In one word, no. I think that...
Okay, now shy, no. Yes.
I think if I look at what are the reasons for this conflict, October 7th did not come out of nowhere. There was 6 October, and so the reason that I was terrified when I saw what Hamas did. But I think that if I look what is behind the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, what is behind this violence is the continuation of the occupation and the deprivation of Palestinians from their rights. This is the basic, and nothing changed for me in the analysis, let's say, of the situation. It didn't change also how do I see the future of the two people in this land. I see that this is a land in which there are two people that are intertwined in this land between the river and the sea. The number is always equal. Nobody is going nowhere. And the only way to move forward is through equal personal and collective rights for Israelis and Palestinians in two independent states, but also respecting the relationship, the attachment to the whole of the land, for the whole of this territory between the river and the sea that they call their homeland. So in this, nothing has changed. But at the same time, yes, I think the level of violence and atrocity by Hamas on October 7 did shook me up, and certainly what Israel is doing since then shook me up and made me, and now we have to say very clearly, in these very days, in these very moments, there is an ethnic cleansing in northern Gaza that is planned, and it's not by chance. So this, yes, this in a way surprised me. I didn't imagine that my society, the Israeli society, will reach these levels. I didn't expect it. It surprised me, and it does, make me ask myself, is this possible to have this kind, in any solution? Especially I'm talking about my people, because I'm an Israeli, I'm a Jew. I'm an Israeli Jew. Do the Jews really in Israel are ready to accept that there is another people on this land, that they have the same rights as we have, that they are humans as we are? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. So it makes me a little bit to be confused.
Thank you. Shai, love to hear, also what happened to you personally, politically, and also if you can maybe analyze a little bit how you see the Israeli society since then in terms of political change or shift, if there is any.
Sure. Thanks for having me. I'll start from the second part of the question. I think that the common view about what happened to Israeli society after October 7th, which is, I think, partially correct, is that it went even further to the right. So there has been this kind of process for years now that Israel has been going, that the Israeli public is adopting more and more kind of right-wing views and values about the conflict, and even more so after October 7th. And I think on one level it's correct in terms of being able to see the suffering of Palestinians, in terms of being able to recognize Palestinians' right for self-determination. All of that, I think, it's correct. And to be honest, it's to be kind of expected that people, after experiencing such a brutal attack, will have very fierce emotions of humiliation and will to vengeance, and like any other people, like the Americans felt after 9/11, or like the Palestinians are feeling after atrocities being committed against them. What I do think it's not the case, or it's not as clear of a case, is what exactly Israelis right now are thinking about the conflict or about the end state of this conflict. Because there has been a very strong ideological paradigm about the conflict that has been dominating Israeli politics for the past 15 years, which kind of experts call managing the conflict. I don't know if you heard this phrase or not, but basically the kind of underlying assumptions of this policy is that Israel can keep occupying Gaza and the West Bank and East Jerusalem, and the economy will boom, we'll be a startup nation. This is kind of a sustainable thing. The Palestinian issue should be treated as like a side issue that, quoting Naftali Bennett here, we should just live with. And there has been this very kind of strong movement of people. One of the kind of architects of this paradigm was Bogi Ya'alon, who is now one of the heads of the kind of opposition against the government, who kind of ridiculed people who wanted to come up with solutions to the conflict. Bogi Ya'alon even wrote a book about the solutionists, like ridiculing them, that we should not, people who are striving for a solution are dewy-eyed idealists that don't know what they're talking about, and they don't know, shouldn't have anything to say about Israel's security. Now this paradigm has completely collapsed. You can see it on polls. Poll after poll, people say that they don't think that managing the conflict is possible no longer. And in most polls, they're just contradicting one another, because it seems that the Israeli public don't really know what they want in terms of solutions. So it's not like there is a debate in Israel between a two-state solution now, or a land-for-all solution now, or a one-state solution now. It's a non-existent debate in Israeli society. People are...
a debate for pro-settlements in Gaza, or settlements in South Lebanon, or...
So no, and also this is what I wanted to say. I don't think it's also a debate about whether we should settle in Gaza or not. I think there are forces on the ground that try to kind of push Israel towards building new settlements and occupying territory from Lebanon and Gaza. But this is not in the public debate. The public debate has since October 7th, has been formed between those who support the release of the hostages and those who kind of say we need to continue this all-out war and make whatever sacrifice we need to eliminate all our enemies in the area and continue kind of this endless war without any very clear view of what we are trying to achieve with this war. And I think that the worrying thing about the discussion about the conflict, the politics about the conflict in Israel right now, is exactly this kind of view that the only tool that Israel has right now in order to make things better for Israelis and Palestinians, in order to stop the death and the killing, is just by using more and more military force. And I think this is kind of the thing that we, people who want to push for better solutions to this quite miserable area right now, we need to come to terms with and provide them an alternative to this kind of view, that military force is the only thing that can keep Jewish Israelis, at least, secure in this region.
On a personal level?
On a personal level, I still, like Meron, I still think that the fundamental problem in Israeli, in the kind of the conflict, the fundamental problem of the conflict hasn't changed, and I still support the two-state solution, which is quite different from what Meron is supporting, but and Rula, of course. But we will, I think, discuss this in a minute. I do think that although many people from some people who also are sitting here, we warned the Israeli public for years that managing the conflict is not sustainable, that without recognizing that we live in this land with another people, there will be no security for no one. We expected there will be an explosion, but none of us, I think, expected the explosion to be that cruel, that hard, that the magnitude of the violence was unimaginable. And I think that also on a personal level, I think that I couldn't believe that the IDF will be so weak and will allow this to happen. And I have a few things to say about my views about kind of another kind of paradigm that collapsed, that part of the left in Israel also supported. So it wasn't the managing the conflict, but it was unilateral disengagements. And this also collapsed quite harshly after October 7th. And I think we need to be honest with ourselves, like the left camp in Israel, that although we always rejected unilateral disengagement and preferred peace agreements, still by, being silent about it at least, we preferred unilateral disengagement from continuing occupation. I think what October 7th showed us, and I think we as a camp needed to be more proactive about it, is that unilateral disengagement without an immediate follow-up for long-lasting peace, without a proactive government and political forces who are kind of calling for peace on the one hand, and using force, military force and economic and diplomacy to strengthen the moderate forces in the region instead of strengthening Hamas like Netanyahu did. I think without these conditions being met, unilateral disengagement is a worse idea than I thought it is before October 7th.
Okay, so since we saw that the audience broadly knows about Land for All, I'd like to skip to a more difficult question, but I assume you're already used to that specific question, which is, a lot of the criticism around the Land for All is regarding the question of settlements. And will the settlements, in your view, are staying where they are, and what does it mean? Is it even, when presenting this political vision, is it not normalizing the fact that these settlements exist, and might some of them remain there? If you just want to say also some, broad general, just a reminder for everyone what your plan is, for the sake of those who don't necessarily know it.
I'm surprised that those who don't know yet, but no. The issue of settlement cannot be dealt separately. In our view, what we in Land for All are calling for, and we are calling for basically in a very graphic way to describe it. We are calling for two independent states within a confederation, a joint structure, much like the EU, between an independent Israel and independent Palestine on the 67 borders, with joint institution, freedom of movement. So we have to see the issue of settlements within this framework. Settlements are illegal. Their expansion is illegal. There's no doubt about it. 100%. We oppose the expansion of settlements, and we oppose the settlements themselves. But if we want to look at the future, and we want to see, we understand that both people see this land as their homeland, whether we accept, each side accept the narrative of the other, but this is the reality, the emotional reality. We are saying that all people, Jews and Israelis, Jews and Palestinians, will have the right to move freely and reside freely within this homeland. This applies to Israelis who would like to live under Palestinian rule, under Palestinian sovereignty in the West Bank or Gaza, if they wish to. And this applies also to Palestinians, including refugees, an issue completely ignored by the Geneva and all the process, all the Oslo process in Geneva and everything, completely ignored. The refugees, the Palestinians just have to give up the issue of refugees.
That's completely ignored. There's a compensation system and
no, completely ignored. 10,000 to 20,000. It's ignoring. Half of the Palestinian people is outside Palestine. Half. If we Jews came back, let's accept our story. We came back after 2,000 years. They didn't forget after 75 years. They didn't forget. So we are saying everyone has a right to live wherever he wants. Palestinian, including refugees, and Israelis, including settlers. All the privileges that settlers have now will be dismantled totally. They will not control the land. They will not, of course, decide who is building and what to build. This will be under Palestinian sovereignty. We are not giving them any privileges. I would even say, it's not maybe the main issue, but even say that the idea of land swaps is even more than we do a recognition that what settlements have done is legitimate. Because if you do land swaps, you say, okay, Ariel is, Israel built a settlement in Ariel, 22 kilometers from the Green Line, then Ariel is part of Israel. We are saying no, 67 borders. We don't change the borders. You want to live in Palestine? Okay. But you have to see it in a holistic way, because this is, we are saying everyone not settlers because they impose themselves illegally. They have the right. But because Jews and Palestinians have a right to live wherever they want in this land. It's not that by this illegal action that they acquire a right. No. The right is for every Jew and every Palestinian.
Rula, someone's clapping, so yeah. You're allowed to, yes. Rula, A Land for All talks a lot about political imagination, trying to broaden it and, you know, bring fresh ideas. It does, though, may sound very imaginary at this point. You know, when we talk about settlers and we see what's happening, you know, in the West Bank at the moment, and or on the other hand, you know, what's happening to Palestinian citizens of Israel within Israel right now, you know, being dragged by the police, handcuffed and blinded to, you know, a picture at the police station for liking something on Facebook, etc. So seeing all this, you know, this requires quite an imagination.
Yeah, exactly. I think you Jews, you can teach us much more about political imagination, you know. It's your job. But we are trying to help or to remind you with political imagination. I fully agree. And it's hard for all of us to keep our energies and beliefs and to practice this political imagination and to speak about the need for changing the reality and stopping the war. But we don't have the luxury to give up, because if we give up, I don't know, we were speaking about that, Meron and I, 2 days ago. If we don't do it, who's going to do this work? And if we don't offer political imagination with political vision, with clear and just and equal political vision, we know what is the present and the future is going to look like. It's what Smotrich and Ben-Gvir and Netanyahu are actually implementing now. And they have the vision and they started to implement it. They have the plans, actually, for all of us. Here I would like to add maybe 2 points about the settlements, and will expand also. We are taking our political vision seriously, and we are updating also it, the main core issues, because we have to remember that we are living in fluid reality. It is the same to say about the whole discourse now about Israel, the left in Israel, and the right, about Zionism, and about all what's going on. I think all of us tend to automatically treat Israel according to the assumptions and the theories and the conceptualization that we were used to during the previous decades. And we need to remember, all of you as Jews need to remember, please, because otherwise we cannot collaborate and do something together. We are speaking about different Israel. Different Israel, different Israeli society, different Israeli political system, different Zionist ideology, different moral basics and principles. To think about the Israeli society, and when we speak about political imagination or about any solution. And a year after the beginning of this year, that the majority of the Israelis cannot even feel a very basic minimum sympathy or empathy, or to acknowledge what is the Israeli government doing and implementing against the Palestinian people in terms of ethnic cleansing and transfer and displacement and killing and mass starvation, It's a disaster. It's a tragedy. First of all, for all of you, but also for all of us. I don't claim that the Palestinian society is, perfect and all of them are, also the Palestinians have changed. But at the end of the day, we have a binational reality on the ground. And we need to know how to continue having this binational reality. And I do want to continue having this binational reality politically and morally and ethically. I don't want to do not transfer, not ethnic cleansing, and not anything else as a Palestinian for the Israeli Jews. And I do ask the other side to treat me in the same way. The last point, according to or referring to the settlements. First of all, when we speak about the settlements, we are speaking about plus the international law, and we need to follow the international law and so on, and that settlements are illegal. We need to remember that everything about the status of the settlements needs to be negotiated with the Palestinian state because it's part of the land of the Palestinian state, part of the 22% of what the Palestinians are going to become. The second point, the terrorist settlers are not part of our deal or offer. Their place is in the jail. The third point, yes, we need to think also, if some of the settlers would like to stay and accept giving up their privileges and their Jewish supremacy over the Palestinians, and they are willing to accept being residents in the state of Palestine, we need, yes, to speak about mechanisms of reparation and compensations of the land for the Palestinians. And this is something that we are developing now in our initiative in terms of research and policy and so on, to be able to offer something much more than what we have as a concept in our political vision.
Thank you. Shai, what I really like about the work of Land for All, it made me a much stronger supporter of the classical two-state solution. I'm half joking because I think actually it's really important that it also helped to sharpen our own views, and I understand that you also are sticking to the good old idea. So why is that?
The audacity to think inside the box.
It's always the younger ones that are, inside the box, isn't it?
So I want to start by saying that this is kind of an important disagreement that I have with some of the points that Rula and Meron just said, but it's kind of a disagreement within the family. I think Rula described quite nicely that the fact that we have a shared vision in kind of abstract level of this place. There will be, I think, no disagreement between us that we want both people to enjoy, to exercise their right of self-determination, to be free and have equal political and human rights in this land. So about these general principles, I don't think there is any disagreement. What I do think that might be problematic, Rula just said that they are changing things according to what's happened now, so maybe we will be more than in an agreement after this conversation. But what I think is problematic about the Land for All initiative is that it is important to offer political imagination, but I don't think the initiative they are offering is political at all. And I will try, is political, it's only imagination. I'll try to explain why. In politics in general, any kind of serious political movement, as Land for All clearly wants to be, you need to fulfill at least basic two conditions in order to be successful. The first is that you need to identify a very specific rival, political rival that you need to defeat, that prevents you from achieving your goals and changing reality. And the second thing is you need to be able to engage with mass audiences in the public, with the people who live in the land, and offer solutions to the major grievances about the key political issue around which society is organized, right? So in Israel, the two answers to these two questions are quite clear in Israel-Palestine. The political group that poses the biggest threat, and I'm not making moral symmetries here, this is kind of just a fact in different ways in different societies, so take it however you like, but this is just a fact, is right-wing fundamentalist religious groups that think that the whole land is for them and for them alone to self-govern on the expense of the other side. Now, within Israel, which is the stronger side in this conflict, this group is the settlements group, the settler movement, which has been very successful in the past few decades, and now we have, as we heard here before on stage, we have a Kahanist government who's being controlled by this group. Now, I will only talk about the fundamentalists of my society, so I will not speak about the Palestinian society right now. But the problem with the Land for All initiative, I think, is specifically identifying this group as the challenge and offering political ways to overcome it. And I'll try to explain why. The strategy from day one, when the Gush Emunim started after '67 war and started kind of building the settlement movement, their main strategy was to change facts on the ground. They were an avant-garde political movement. They did illegal stuff, build settlements, sometimes with the cooperation of the state, but sometimes without any kind of major public support for a very long time.
They started with the Labour Party.
Yeah, I said sometimes with cooperation with the institution, but there wasn't like a referendum in Israel on the settler movement, which I think they will lose any day, including today. Now, the strategy is to change facts on the ground in order to prevent a Palestinian state from coming into being. Now, one of the assumptions, and I read the founding document of Land for All, so I don't know if things have changed since then, but one of the assumptions of the initiative of Land for All is, I think they make two assumptions. One moral that Rula and Meron just talked about, which basically says because of the deep political, religious connection that both people have to this land, this necessarily means, or what follows from this connection is that they should have access or can live in all of the land. And I think this is not true. I just kind of want to refute this moral reasoning. And the second one is that they at least implicitly support the irreversibility thesis, according to which, because of the fact there are now around 600,000 Jewish settlers in East Jerusalem and in the West Bank, this means that politically we cannot reverse this situation, so we need to build our political vision around this thing. Now, I think by making these two assumptions, Land for All, with all the good intentions, implicitly are saying to the settlers, your political strategy was successful. You can keep expanding. I know you reject this, you just said it. But de facto, on the ground, you can keep expanding. We will keep talking in the meanwhile about two states for one land or Land for All. But in the meantime, you legitimize, by making the moral principle that you're supporting, you legitimize the expansion of the settlements for all the area. That's one thing. And the other thing, I'll be very quick because I know I talked for long. So I said before, you need to identify a rival, and I think their assumptions kind of help the political rivals we need to defeat. And the second thing is to engage with the central issue in Israeli politics, which is security. Now, there is a section nicely written in the founding document of the initiative about security, but basically it goes down to, so if people ask how on earth will people from Hamas, who will, as Rula mentioned, many Palestinians still support Hamas in one way or another. And Hamas will probably be part of a future government of Palestine. I don't know, but probably. How will people from Hamas will cooperate with people from Shin Bet and have this kind of shared security apparatus that defend the land from places like attacks from Iran or Lebanon or whatever? Now, I don't want to talk about the practicability of this. I'm just saying that the whole solution is built on trust. They say they're quite clear, and I'll finish now, that we should trust each other in order to kind of make this solution work. And this is why I think this political imagination is not political. It's not a solution to the problem. It's a vision for the day after we will solve the conflict. Because now we have a conflict where we do not trust each other. And we need to provide security in order to convince people in our ideas. And if the whole security apparatus of our idea is built on trust, we're assuming what we want to get in the end. And
thank you.
First
Meron,
of all,
I see you're eager, but we'll let Rula take this one. Yeah. I see you're eager to answer, you know, but we'll let Rula take this one.
Okay. Thank you, Noah. First of all, we have in 1 hour, 1.5 hours, another panel about a land for all. So we are all invited to continue with the discussion, and that's why I'm going to answer briefly. First of all, thank you, Shai, for the inaccurate lecture on political theory. Sorry, I have to say it's partial. I do agree with you, but to some extent. First of all, and the second point, you don't know about our work, and constituency is very important, and we are building that, and we are expanding since the beginning of the war in Israel and in Palestine and in the whole world. But now, in this situation, we are doing also another strategies to advocate for our political solution. So it's not only about the support that we have in Israel and Palestine. And you know what? We don't have much support, and the majority of the Israelis don't want any solution. And accordingly, we need to remember that the establishment of the state of Palestine and the right of self-determination of the Palestinian people is not to be connected to the willing of the Israelis and the Jews and the Israeli government. And the whole global community need also to hear this. It's a very basic right of the Palestinian people, and it's not about Israel to accept or not to accept. Okay? Thank you. The last point. What kind of solution you offer if you only know to criticize our political vision? We don't claim that our political vision is perfect. We are working on that, and we are very attached to our people, to the whole political situation, to the developments that took place since the major last effort before 30 years during the Oslo period. And we develop our political vision, and we advocate for it. It's not perfect. And you know what? Not for the majority of the Jews, and especially not for the majority of the Palestinians. Any political vision that you can think about will be a just solution and a good solution. But if you have better solution to offer, so please.
I just 2
Our time is ending, so no, one sentence.
One sentence.
Yes.
One sentence.
Politics is compromise, by the way.
So in one sentence. After 30 years of a separation model, paradigm, that was promoted by the leaders of Israel, by Rabin and then Barak, and even by the leaders of the Palestinian people. 30 years, we are being told that separation is the solution. After 30 years of this idea, we are further away from peace, we are further into violence, we are further into not being able to solve the solution. We are going backwards, not going forward. So to claim now that separation is the solution is just completely detached from reality. We are in the reality. Saying that separation is the solution is completely detached from reality.
Okay, now that it got interesting, this is only a promo to the rest of the panel that you can listen with the Q&A and Rula and Meron. So thank you, the three of you. And as I warned, we will not solve this in 45 minutes.